Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and welcome you today. Today is another guest day, as our ongoing subscribers know. Often on this podcast, it's just me sharing ideas, insights, and best practices for building strong professional relationships and excelling at that business networking. Occasionally, however, I will be bringing on and interviewing subject matter experts, authors, speakers, thought leaders, social scientists, who will share their thoughts, share their knowledge, share their insight, and just add to the conversation about having great relationships. Today, I'm honored to have somebody who is a subject matter expert, author, speaker, thought leader. I don't think he's quite a social scientist yet, but you can't be everything. But I have Brian Basilico on here, and he is an award-winning author of the best-selling book, It's Not About You, It's About Bacon, Relationship Marketing in a Social Media World, and his latest book, Toilet Paper Math. Now, you're going to need to go look that up and just see what he means by toilet paper math. Very intriguing. But he was honored as one of the top marketers to follow in 2018. He's an online marketing strategist, and he's got 40 years of experience. This is not a guy who just rolled out of college and couldn't find a job. This is what he does. He's got a company, an award-winning internet marketing company called B2B Interactive Marketing. And he's also world-renowned for his LinkedIn training and innovative content marketing strategies. In fact, he was one of the first 1,000 people to join LinkedIn, I believe, is really what it was, social media, which is very impressive. It's up to, 700 million now. So do the math.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. But he's a syndicated blogger, podcaster, sought after guest expert, featured in Entrepreneur Inc. magazines. And his podcast has over 600 episodes, which I was graced to be on, the Bacon Podcast. And it's ranked as one of the top 100 marketing podcasts on iTunes. And he was also recognized by Inc. magazine as one of their top 35. That podcast was ranked by Inc. magazine as one of the top 35 business podcasts out there. Brian, with that, we've got 30 seconds left. No.
It's all good, man. That was a hell of an introduction. I left the bacon up for you, too, because I know you like that so much. I mean, I've got a lot of different backgrounds. But, hey, it's sunshiny. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So, and, even though I'm not a social scientist, I'm a social mad scientist in a good way.
There you go.
Because I got mad networking skills. That's why we're, you and me are like a brother from another mother. When we had our conversations, like, oh, my God, you think and act and do the same things that I do. And it's, it's all around relationships, and it's all about, networking, getting to know people and maximizing that. And, we had a great conversation. I'm looking forward to sharing with your audience as well.
No, I totally agree. Because we were connected by Dan Lefebvre, somebody you interviewed on your podcast a couple years ago. And I just interviewed him, and we were having a conversation. So you need to meet Brian. And I know how it is when people introduce people, they don't always work out, right? Hey, you need to meet this guy. And I think we were both kind of like, I don't know. But then we started talking about science. And that's just kind of, I can't speak for you. I lit up because, okay, here's somebody, I talk to people all the time, talk about networking, right? Have a good handshake, blah, blah, blah. But when we start getting into the science of things, it's like, okay, this person is the real deal. That's my judge of it.
Thanks. Yeah, and you know what? I mean, there's science behind a lot of what we do, and I think in networking, since your show is primarily about networking, your business is about networking. The one thing I think that keeps us aligned is my business is about networking. It's about marketing, but marketing is it's such a enigma to a lot of people, because marketing, they think, is the thing that they see on TV. They think that marketing is something that generates sales, when really, when you look down at marketing, what it really is a tool to generate conversations. And depending on the kind of business you're in, if you're selling, and that's why toilet paper math is such a interesting topic, because what I say in the world of consumer marketing, okay, if somebody buys the wrong toilet paper, they're going to sleep on the couch, right? Yeah. But if you're in business and you buy the wrong toilet paper for your, multinational corporation, it gets shipped all over the world, and it's the wrong stuff, and everybody thinks they're using toilet paper that feels like sandpaper, you lose your job and you sleep on the street, right? So there's a big difference between marketing and what it does from a consumer brand and a business brand, and then take that to another level. And one of the things about marketing, especially in the B2B and sales world, is marketing, the way I look at it is marketing is kind of the spark plug to sales, all right? You can, in a lot of marketing, you'll see it. It's very flashy, like a spark plug, right? You get these flashes, it grabs your attention, it does all this stuff. But the problem is the spark plug just sitting out in the air does nothing but make smoke, right? If you put that spark plug in an engine, that spark can actually drive the engine and actually move the pistons and move the car. But if the engine is seized, if your sales system is not set up right, all the marketing in the world is just going to sit there and basically blow it up, Right. So those two things work hand in glove. So there's a little bit of science for you right there, internal combustion engine.
No, I love the analogies. That's another thing we have in common, because people understand analogies. Just basic concepts they don't. But when we had our initial conversation, one of the things that we started to talk about was Dunbar's number. And I really want to spend some time talking about Dunbar's number and just your take on it. What I love about it, here's the example I always use. Maybe it's a metaphor, analogy, but my kids don't listen to me, right? I could give them the winning lottery numbers and they wouldn't listen, but the neighbor tells them whatever, and they're going to listen to the neighbor. So for me to talk on here is great, but I think you coming in just kind of lends some validity to, I didn't make up this Dunbar number thing. Right. So please.
Okay, so let me go back. When I first wrote It's Not About You, It's About Bacon Relationship Marketing, it was a book that was unique in the way that it talked about networking, and the fact that networking, you've heard all these things about know, like, and trust and all those other things, but it really kind of broke networking down into relationships and why you want to do it and what happens. And Dunbar's number was introduced to me when I was giving a speech at Central Washington University. And so I'm speaking to these kids, and they're in an auditorium, and I actually was on camera. And one of the kids stands up and asks me a question, says, "What do you feel about Dunbar's number?" I said, "I've never heard of it, so I will research it after we're done, but tell me what it is." And they did, and I went and researched it. And what it was is Dunbar is a guy who's an anthropologist who came up with this concept of that the average person can only maintain 150 relationships. Now, to me, at the time, selling social media, writing a book on social media, I go, nah, this can't be true. So think about it. At the time I had 3,000 Facebook friends, and I had, 3,000 people that I knew on LinkedIn. That's grown since then. But I said, no, I can maintain all of these relationships, 6,000 people. After I started digging deeper and getting more and more into the technology and the, the history and the psychology behind this stuff, what I found was that this is actually a really great marketing ideal. And the reason is because if you take it back to caveman days, there's a great book, and I cannot remember the guy's name. It's Noah something, but it's called Sapiens, and it talks about tribes.
Yeah,
and the reason, book. Yeah, it's an awesome book. I wish I had his name in the top of my head, but I don't. But the just look up Sapiens, you'll find it. It's a great book, and the concept of it is that we have a tribe of 150 people that we can basically remember their faces. The reason this is so important is because in the ancient days when we were tribes of people out on the plains, if you didn't recognize somebody, they were a threat. And so your brain was able to remember those 150 people, and somebody that you meet that you've never met before, all of a sudden there is a threatening position. Now, I want you, Frank, to think about, you go into a networking meeting for the first time. as a person walking in that you feel the threat, right? But do people in the meeting feel the threat that somebody new is coming into their tribe? Do you see that at all?
It certainly depends. But if I'm going to a group of strangers, I feel that tension. Some people say they don't. I think
right.
they're maybe.
They look at, some people look at that as fresh meat, as an opportunity. It's
sure.
like, it's some people treat the new people like cannibals, other people treat them like people from different tribes, And so one of the things about it in recognizing the 150 people is you got to think about, the ecology of that tribe. There are certain people that have special skills, people that know how to start a fire, right? People that know how to make tools, people that use those tools to kill animals, people that skin the animals and make the clothes, and then other people take the meat and process it and hand it to the person with fire. This is an ecosystem, right? And everybody has their place in it. The thing about the tribe and the 150 is, if somebody is outside the tribe, you fear they're going to come in and take away somebody, they're going to kill somebody, they're going to do something bad. The other side of it, too, is when the tribes grow above 150, and they've seen this in the primate world, is that, there is a power struggle. Somebody wants to take over that tribe. Either they want to conquer the tribe, or they want to get rid of the leader and take over as the leader. So, and then if we bring this into the modern day, and we look at a company like Gore-Tex figured out that this 150 number worked really, really good in a factory. So what they did is they found out that 150 would recognize each other, would have relationships with each other, would improve productivity, idea generation, all these other things. So what they did is they built factories with 150 parking spots. And the minute somebody started parking on the lawn because there was no spot, that's when they built another factory. So there's been all kinds of evidence across time to show that this 150 number has a huge meaning in networking and in business.
I think I'm spot on with you. When I talk to people about it and get them to try and conceptualize it, the example I always use, I break it down to the lower end. I said I was once I had somebody calling me. They wanted to sell me something. I don't remember what it was. It doesn't matter, Brian. And they showed up with two people. And so we're having this conversation. I'm talking with the one person. They're having a conversation. I'm talking with the second person. And I realized, I'm thinking about Dunbar's number at that moment, there are 3 conversations in the room, right? And if I added another person, it would go to 6. And so when you look at Dunbar's number and you have 150 people, there's a heck of a lot of things that we need to keep track of, and our brains just crap out at some point. Right. And so there is a whole lot to this. Yes, we can have 10,000 connections on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. That's fine. Right. They're not relationships.
Right.
They're not.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest problems. So when we jump to LinkedIn, there are, one of my missions in marketing is to overcome the narratives that people have in their heads. And the 3 main narratives that I hear is companies don't want their people to be on LinkedIn because they're afraid that headhunters are going to come take their best people. And I hate to tell you, ain't going to happen. If people are going to leave your company, they're leaving for other reasons than a headhunter just picking them up. If you're making them happy, they're never going to leave, right?
Yeah.
Second thing is people don't want to use LinkedIn because of exactly what you said. There are people out there that promote the way to make LinkedIn successful is you have 30,000 potential connections. Connect up with 30,000, spam them all. 3,000 people will respond. Out of those 3,000 people that respond, 300 of those people will have a conversation with you. And if you're really lucky, you'll sell 30 of them. And out of those 30 people, you have 3 lifelong customers. Now, who's got time to go to 30,000 to 3, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
And the bottom line, not only is it a lot of work, but it doesn't work. I mean, you have better luck picking up the phone and going, do you want to buy a sheep?
Right.
And most people are going to say no. And eventually in 30,000 phone calls, you will find somebody who says, tell me about the sheep, and they will buy the sheep because, numbers say that you will do that. So yes, it works. I can guarantee you it works, but does it work well? No. Is it efficient? No. And will it be a long-lasting thing that will help your business? So take it the opposite direction. Let's look at that 150. If you have good relationships with 150 people, I have this thing that I call the 10-10-10 strategy. And what it is you reach out to 10 people, 10 minutes, 10 words. 10 people, 1 minute per person. You figure out where they like to be communicated to. Some people like LinkedIn, some people like Facebook, some people like text, some people like smoke signals. Does not matter. But you reach out to them with 10 words. How are you doing? How can I help you? And you can add today. You can go 5 words, 20 words. It doesn't matter. But the key thing that you're doing is you're basically testing the waters of the relationship. The people that respond back to you and say, I'm doing great, don't need anything, how are you doing? You're done. Other people may come back and say, no, thanks for caring. I had this bad thing happen and it turns into a long conversation. Other people will just not respond. But the key thing is, if you reach out to 10 people a day, 5 days a week, 50 people, right?
Yep.
If you did it every single business day of the month, you would reach 200 people. That means you could cycle through those 200 relationships that you have. And those 200 relationships become the core of your existence in business. And they are going to be a mix of friends, of current clients, past clients, associates, co-workers, maybe even people who are vendors. Or it could just be people you like, people that are influencers, people that you've met. You could find somebody and reach out to them and say, how you doing? How can I help you? Or, how are you doing? How's the kids' soccer game going this month? That kind of thing. It doesn't matter. The key thing is you want to make sure that you're available to them and that you're building that relationship. Once you continue that relationship, they will cue you in as to whether they're interested in maintaining it or not. Guess what? If nobody wants to talk to you, one of those people, you pull them out, you go add another person in, and you keep that 200 cycling. It doesn't mean that if you put somebody outside of that niche that you can't bring them back in. The key thing is, as long as you're maintaining those relationships, they will start to bear fruit.
So you every month you're doing this is
Yes.
what you're recommending. Okay.
Every single month, yes.
Okay.
And this is a touch right now. We've actually done it twice this month.
You and I.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I would say 3 the first time we talked, and then me.
Well, that too.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
No, I totally agree. Do you coach your people to keep track of the things they've said? I find the biggest impetus for people doing things on social media in general is thinking, and so the extent you can take the thinking out of it, because if they don't know what to post, they're going to sit there for 30 minutes, and then it becomes a waste of time.
Right.
Likewise, if they don't know what to say. Do they keep track?
Yeah, no. Then I take it to another level, and this is a program that I teach. It's called How to Turn Your CRM into an ATM. And yes, you want to, anybody that you communicate with. I started last year at the beginning of the pandemic with 6,000 people in my CRM. Mm-hmm. And I went through that list and I said, have I spoken to this person? Do they have value in my world right now? Or are they just somebody that I met at a networking event? And, they handed me the business card and I added them to my CRM, because that's what most people do.
Sure.
You get somebody, you put them in your CRM, and you never connect with them again. So I went through and said, have I talked to this person? Do they have value to me in my business? Do I have value to them? Do I have something to offer them? It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make me money, but maybe they could be a great resource to somebody that I know. So I went through and I narrowed down my list from 6,000 to 1,500, and I went through that 1,500 and then basically dropped it down. I starred or, said, these are the 200 people that I want to stay in touch with. When you meet somebody, like when I met you, and we got this introduction. I can't remember if it was email or on LinkedIn or one or both. It could have been both. But the first thing I do is I go take you and I plug you into LinkedIn, and I grab that information and I put it into my CRM and I put a star next to it. And then when we talked, I take notes, and those notes are entered into the CRM. And that what it does, it date stamps when I talk to you and what we said. So that's sitting in there at every given time.
Gotcha.
And that way, next time we get together, that is there. And literally, once I get you, and the beauty of the CRM that I use is it integrates directly in LinkedIn. So it pulls that information and it pulls your LinkedIn profile, your email address, whatever it is, that's in there. If it's not in there, I can always type it in or copy and paste. And so now I have a record of the communications that we've had, and it doesn't take a lot of time. I could type in a quick note. Frank's a great guy. He's a brother from another mother. We both talk about relationships and Dunbar's number. I'm done. It doesn't have to be really super complicated.
Interesting. Okay. What's the CRM you use?
I use Nimble.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and there's tons of them out there. I mean, you can
Sure.
do it with anything. There's nothing says that you can't use another CRM, just copy and paste the LinkedIn info. But Nimble has a Chrome extension that actually allows you to just immediately pull that down.
Well, I'm glad you said that. That's a question I get all the time. What's the best CRM to use? My advice is the one you use.
Right.
It's like
well,
exercise.
The bottom line is use it.
Right,
That's
yeah.
There's some kind of number out there. It's like companies that have CRMs and force their people to use it. 42% have opened it, and less than 12% will keep notes. And that's the problem. Is that it's one thing to have a CRM. It's another thing to have the data in there. It's another thing to keep it fresh. And it doesn't take that long when you've got a system put in place.
No, and I think it's valuable because you do have people. It's one thing if you're keeping up with somebody month to month. I can kind of keep track of that. I'm not super smart, but I can keep track of, okay, we talked about soccer or whatever it is. But when you have that person that comes out of the blue 6 months later, okay, who is this person? Like you say, you have 6,000 people. You can't remember 6,000 people. So,
right.
If, Dan Lefebvre comes out of the blue and says, hey, I want to recommend to you Frank Egan, all of a sudden you can see it on your CRM.
That's exactly what I did. Is I went in and I looked at my CRM, and inside of there I have the date of when I interviewed him. And so it's like, okay, yeah, I remember him. Dan Lefebvre, I talked to him once, on the podcast.
Yeah, great guy, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent.
I guess let's shift gears here first to kind of wrap up. Brian, I want to talk about your business. I want to talk about your books quickly, things you're doing, things that people listening could help you with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, my business, B2B, has been around for 20 years. It's obviously evolved. When I started it, there was no LinkedIn or Facebook or anything like that. Currently, my business deals with B2B companies in the $10 to $100 million range. And what I do is I basically provide that spark plug for their engine. If they have a sales engine, I can create the material that creates the relationships for their salespeople. So that's essentially what it does. And I'd have to sit down and explain it in a much longer process because it is somewhat intricate, but here's the bottom line: it works. That's it. Is I help companies enhance the relationships that their salespeople already have. Now, getting back to Dunbar's number just real quick, and the reason why this works is if I put something out on social media, generally 100 people will see it if I'm lucky, right?
Yep.
But if you have a sales team of 10 people, or say you have 10 people in your business, which I have a handful of businesses I do this for, if you take that same message that's educational, not salesy, and have a way of getting each one of them to either publish it themselves or publish it for them, you take that same message, and now instead of going to 100 people, you're going to 1,000 people. When you hit those 1,000 people, chances are 50% of them will be overlap. So now we've hit at least 500 unique people. Out of those 500 people, somebody somewhere is going to pick up the phone, send an email, or do something that is going to lead to some kind of engagement in one way, shape, or form. It could be, can you help me with this? Or I need to place an order I forgot to order toilet paper. It's one of those kind of things. So amplifying those messages is really key important. So let me jump to the books. The first book, It's Not About You, It's About Bacon, Relationship Marketing, a Social Media World, is really about how to network and how social media is different than social networking. And social networking is about the relationship. Social media is about promotion. And you use social media to build your social networking, but they are two completely different things and you have to treat them different. Second book is called The Bacon System. And what the Bacon System is built on is more for business, but there are three core things, and that is, in order to use the internet effectively, most people think all I got to do is go on LinkedIn, and that's not correct. And the reason it's not correct is because it's an island in social media unto itself. You've heard this saying probably a few times. If you're not paying for it, you are the product being sold. So social media controls the conversation. They tell you who sees what. The one place where you control it is your website. So your website is key. Next thing is the data analytics. And then the third piece is the content that you create. So your content will drive traffic to your website, analytics measures it, and then the analytics will tell you which content is popular so you can go back to your website and change what's up there. So that works as an ecosystem. And then you use social media and email to broadcast that information, to distribute it. So email is a closed loop system. Social media is an open loop system that you have no control over. So you use all of those methodologies. Heck, if you can, get people's addresses and mail them a print copy, because that still works today too. I mean, lumpy mail. How cool is it to get a book or something in the mail?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It sets you apart at this point.
Right, exactly. So all of that works as a system. So that's what the bacon system is. And then the third book, Toilet Paper Math, really talks about when you buy, the aisle of toilet paper in all the big box stores, right? And you go in there and one says, 8 equals 64. The other one says 9 equals 120. And you're looking at that going, what does that mean? What they're doing is they're telling you that they've taken toilet paper, they've shrunk down the size of it, they put more on a roll, and they're charging you more per roll, but they're making you feel like you're getting more because it says 8 equals 64. If you had 64 rolls of old toilet paper that was single ply, it's not as comfortable, but the bottom line is you'd actually have more toilet paper in the end. So they mask what's going on, and the same thing happens on the internet. I get customers that come to me and say, hey, Brian, I'm not getting enough traffic on my website. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'll get you 1 million visitors tomorrow for $500. You want it? And they say, yeah. I say, that's easy. Okay, there's 2 things you have to do, though. You have to translate your website to Farsi and Russian. And the other thing is nobody's ever going to buy from you because they're not interested in what you sell. But I'll get you all the traffic that you want. And that's what companies do is they get this thing in their head that says more traffic equals more money, and it doesn't. The right traffic equals more money, and talking to the right people. I always say I would rather spend 10 minutes with 10 people who know, like, and trust me than 10 seconds with 10,000 who don't.
Very good. I love it. I appreciate your time today. This has been awesome.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity coming on.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.